How's it going, everyone? Hope everybody is all good. Right, we're back again. Good video again today, talking about addressing weak points. Funny enough, because I've had to go through this with some clients of late, and it got me thinking I'm going to make a YouTube video about it. So, addressing weak points or lagging muscles that we think are lagging behind. So, I'm going to go over a couple of things and like a checklist of what I would look at. If someone has got a weak or a lagging area that we really want to bring up, this is a checklist of things that I go through. Okay, so let's just give an example that someone's got weak quads, right? They're trying to bring up the quads. First thing for most people is make sure you're not fucking skipping leg day. I see you all out there, all the people who are out there trying to say that they train football and all this stuff, they don't need to train legs. Bullshit. Make sure you're actually training legs in the first place. That's the first thing. Right, so let's just say someone has got weak quads and they're trying to bring up quads. I will go through every one of these points with trying to bring up weak quads as an example. Right, so first thing, you have to check your technique. You have to strip it all down and you go right in at the fundamentals and the basics of how is our technique. Because all of this other stuff, it doesn't matter as much if your technique is not correct. Because if we just try and throw more sets or increase frequency, just throwing more shit on top of a heap of shit, that's not going to get us anywhere. So we need to actually check the quality of our movements and what we're doing. So when it comes to quad training, let's take hack squats, leg presses, pendulum squats, back squats, whatever it may be, trying to stay in the quads and making sure we've got a decent tempo as we are getting into that knee flexion where the quad is going to be under a full stretch. We're not just dive bombing out the bottom. We're not just allowing, again, the glutes, the lower back or the adductors to really take the brunt of the load. We're controlling the end range of motion when we've got that forward knee travel in the bottom position. We're making sure that we're trying to direct as much stimulus and tension to the actual quads instead of allowing on the stretch reflex or other muscles to actually take over. So first thing you might just have to do is reset the lift. You have to just take a little bit of weight off. You might have to take 10 to 20% of total load off and fix your tempo, maybe add in a slight pause in the bottom and just make sure that it's the quads doing the actual work. As I say, because if you don't fix that, you're just going to throw shit on top of more shit, and without technique being decent in the first place, you're always going to be fighting a losing battle. So that's the first thing, and a lot of it will come down from just stripping it all back, stripping the weight back, resetting the lift, and taking about 10 to 20% of load off, and just making sure your technique is where it needs to be. Right, so that's number one. Now number two, start with your weaker link in a session. Now this should be pretty obvious. If you've got weak quads, and let's say you're just coming in every leg day, and you're just blasting loads of deadlifts until you're buried into the ground, well, that doesn't make sense, does it? If you love deadlifts and that's a strong point for you, okay, I understand the importance of enjoying our training, but you want to start with quads if it's a weak link. You want to come in with the weak link because you're going to be fresh. You're not going to have all this lingering fatigue from doing all the other movements first, and then you're going into trying to attack your weak link. Come in when you're fresh and you can put every ounce of energy and effort that you've got into training your weak points. Get your weak point done first. It just makes sense. You know, if you want to get into the science of it all as well, you're going to have a little bit more motor unit recruitment through the quads straight off the bat in the session, instead of if you're doing it right after, let's say, deadlifts and all of your hamstring and glute work as an example. So start with your weak links, and that can be with any muscle group. Front loader at the start of a session, right? You're going to put more directed quality work up front. And I spoke about this before in some of my other videos about upper lower training and how you can program around weak points. But start with your weak links, right? That's number two. Number three would be tinkering training frequency. Now, you've got to tread carefully with this one. I don't just mean if you're already training a muscle group twice a week, I don't just mean going to train quads 3 or 4 times a week, because the bottleneck there is going to be your ability to recover from that and come back and allow progressive overload to happen. Another bottleneck tends to be, again, the knee joint as well. For a lot of people, hitting quads more than twice a week, again, with the amount of volume that you'd need, sometimes people's knees can start to wreak havoc on them. So what I mean by tinker with frequency is if you're someone who's only hitting legs once a week or quads once a week, If you take that to 2 times a week, like, your quads are going to blow up. So literally going from 1 to 2 times a week, but again, making sure your volume is on point with that, and that will see a big changes. Going from 2 to 3 times a week, now again, you have to be careful with that. Some people can handle that. If you put your frequency up to 3 times a week, your volume per session might have to come down. So that is something you could think of. But the main thing is, if someone is only training quads once a week or a weak muscle group once a week, you don't need 7 days recovery before coming back hitting it again. You need to actually hit it with more frequent bouts of stimulus, right? So if you are only hitting it once, you go to twice. If you are hitting it twice, potentially you could try 3, but you have to manage your volume in those sessions, and you have to, again, manage your recovery correctly and let your body feed back to you, so you can tinker with frequency with that one. Now, that takes me into number 4, where you're tinkering with volume. Now, we know just more volume isn't always the answer, right? You don't just keep throwing volume on things and expecting something to grow. You need to make sure your set quality is on point, and again, we go to the top of the list here, making sure technique is on point. However, you can add an extra little 1 to 2 sets for a muscle group in a session if you feel it can handle it, and then you pull away from stronger areas, as an example. So let's say you're doing 4 or 5 sets for quads. Now, for most people, that will tend to be more than enough, and then you're doing 4 sets for hamstrings and a couple of sets for glutes, whatever it might be. Now, what you can do, if hamstrings and glutes are maybe more of a strong point, instead of doing maybe 4 sets for quads, what you could do in that leg session, okay, we go, instead of 4 sets of quads, I'm going to do 6 sets of quads, and then instead of 4 sets of hamstring, I'm going to pull those down to just 2 sets of hamstring. So you pull away from your strong areas, and you add an extra set or 2 to your weaker links. So it just allows you to get a little bit more stimulus. But again, you have to tread that tightrope of making sure that extra tweak in volume still allows you to recover. But that's why we pull away some total set volume from our stronger links or our stronger areas to allow us to recover. Does that make sense? You can't just add volume and then again expect to keep training your stronger links with the same amount of volume. It can be smart. Pull away periodically from your strong links. Again, they're not going to go nowhere. There's a reason they're your strong links, because again, they're strong muscle groups for you. Keep them on the back burner, keep them around maintenance. You bump up a little bit of volume, just a touch for your weaker links. And again, you let your body feed back to you. So that is something you can do, okay? So, final one. This is a big one. Now, structural and mobility issues that can actually be holding you back. Now, especially as an example with quads, let's say somebody has got very, very poor ankle mobility or hip mobility, and they just really struggle getting to that bottom position of a hack squat or a pendulum squat or a back squat. So their mobility is a bottleneck with them getting as much knee flexion as possible. So you need to make sure you're addressing your ankle mobility, your hip mobility, you're taking your time with your actual mobility work outside the gym, and to making sure that you can actually get enough knee flexion. Because if your mobility is a bottleneck and you can't get as much knee flexion, well, your quads can't get as much stimulus, and more than likely your glutes and adductors and lower back are just going to be taking the brunt of the load because you're not getting as much knee flexion as you can. Now, what can help you with quads as well would be a heel elevated shoe, any sort of squat shoe, the Olympic weightlifting style shoe. You can even use squat wedges to artificially improve your ankle mobility, but you should be working on your ankle and hip mobility as it is if they are bottlenecks. Because then fixing your structural and mobility issues is going to allow you to get better knee flexion. Okay, so that could be a case for a lot of different muscle groups as well. So structural and mobility problems can hold you back, so you need to check that to making sure that you're taking the muscle through its full range, under load, under control, and you're not having mobility as a bottleneck. Okay, so hopefully this helps you out. If you look at a couple of those, the main one for me is number 1, checking your technique. I think you've really got to have that nailed down, and if once you execute that and then you start front loading some of your weak links at the start of a session, you're going to be good to go. Okay, so let me know what you think. Obviously, any questions you have, drop them down below. Again, I appreciate all the support that I've been getting over the last couple of months on the channel. We are growing nicely, and we're going to keep going. Okay, have a good one. Speak to you in the next one.